Welcome to the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast. Dive into market insights, winning strategies, and the stories shaping today's commercial real estate landscape. Let's get started.
So hello and welcome everyone to the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast. My name is Adam Schertzer. I'm an advisor at JMJ Commercial Realty, and I'm joined by Josh Cedia, the broker and owner of JMJ Commercial Realty. How you doing, Josh?
Doing well, thanks.
Good. And we've got a special guest today for you, all the way from Woburn, Massachusetts. We've got Rich Mahoney from SB Goddard and Son Insurance. Thanks for joining us, Rich.
Thanks for having me, Adam and Josh.
So, Rich, I know you do personal lines of insurance, commercial lines of insurance. I know for the sake of this podcast, where it's commercial realty, we'll probably just focus on the commercial aspects of your work. But why don't you just give a little background, of the company? I know it was founded 1884. It's pretty amazing to see a company that lasts that long, and how you got involved with this.
Yeah, SB Goddard was founded in 1884. I didn't start then. I started a few years after that. But SB Goddard started it in Woburn and in Boston. They had two offices. Brought his son in, and then after the son got a couple attorneys involved, and they bought out the shares of the company, and they kind of ran it for a few years. One of the attorneys was friends with my great uncle, brought him in the 40s, and he brought my grandfather in after World War II. They ran it together for a while, and then they brought my father in the 70s. My father was a teacher, but when he was going to have his third child, my mother said, this teaching gig isn't going to pay the bills, so maybe you should get into insurance. And he came in the 1970s. He says it aligns with when they took out corporal punishment in schools, but I think it was basically my mother telling him to go get involved in the family business. And I came in 2001, and I'm in the process of buying him out. So we're looking forward we'll hit 150 years in the next 9 years. So that's a goal that I'm searching for, and I've already started prepping my boys to, come in as the fourth generation of the Mahoneys in it. So they're
Awesome.
they're not overly enthusiastic right now about selling insurance while they're teenagers, but they'll come around.
Sounds good. That's quite a history there. That's awesome. And maybe we should just back up a sec here. Why don't you just explain what is commercial insurance? I know most people know what personal insurance is. You have homeowners insurance or car insurance, things like that. So how does commercial insurance differ?
It differs in that it's typically a larger policy if you're dealing with general liability. Somebody who the bottom line is you want to protect your assets. So if you buy, say, a mixed use building, and you have 7 tenants in there, you're going to want to have protection from, if they're having people into the building slipping and falling on, especially, like this weekend with some snow and ice. You want to make sure that they're covered for that. And it's typically just, like I said, an investment for them to protect what they have bought.
Mhm. Now, as far as that goes, I know in our business we do a lot of work with people that are leasing property and
Mhm.
purchasing. So if someone's going to lease a piece of property, do they need commercial insurance as well?
My favorite answer in insurance is it depends. They definitely do. But it's a matter of the landlord requiring that in their contract or in their lease. A lot of these landlords would also have themselves named as an additional insured. And what that does is that transfers some of the coverage from, say you're renting to a small company and they're taking up space. The insurance from that company would be cover the landlord as well. So say you're a real estate agency, and somebody's coming to see you and go to on showings, they slip and fall. It's not just going to be on the landlord, it'll be covered partially by the policy that the tenant has with them. So that's a lot of landlords. There's a difference between a certificate of insurance, because the certificate of insurance is just going to show them, on this day you had coverage that, covered general liability, and it was, this dollar amount. But if that tenant goes on and doesn't pay the next month, the landlord is not going to be informed that there's no longer any insurance on there. That's why a lot of the landlords, I advise them they should ask to be named an additional insured, because in that case, they're going to get notified if the tenant has a cancellation notice. So they're so it just doesn't come out of the blue that, hey, by the way, there's no coverage.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Now in this whole process too, where, or I guess when should, I guess, tenants or someone purchasing commercial property, start looking at insurance? Is it something they should do before they find the property, after they find it, close to closing, before? What's your timeline, and what do you see?
As soon as they identify a property that they want to insure, I would advise them to contact an insurance agent. We can start looking into it. We can find out if there's been, a fire on the property, if there's been flooding in the past, if there's been claims associated with that address or that location. We can go in and let them know, hey, by the way, have they disclosed this, or do you know that that's in a floodplain and that's going to cost you X amount of dollars more when you get the property. So the sooner we're brought in, the better. I mean, before the pandemic, it was a lot easier. A lot of companies have become more stringent with their underwriting. Um, so it's the more time you have to look into it and investigate, the better off you are, is what I suggest.
Hmm.
When you have someone looking at sales, let's say they're purchasing a property, commercial building, how often do you see that they're coming to you for an insurance request, like maybe a week before the closing or 2 weeks before the closing, or is it usually a lot, um, longer kind of time frame? I'm just curious on like timing when you typically have requests come in. Are they kind of last minute or spread out?
I've had it all depends on, if it's a cash transaction, nobody's kind of nudging them, hey, where's the insurance binder? And it's not top of mind for them. Um, Insurance is not really a sexy thing that people like to think about, so it's kind of necessary evil sometimes is the way it's viewed. So um, I've had people come in and say, I completely forgot I'm closing on a property tomorrow. I need insurance. And I used to joke with them and say, is it on fire right now? And if they say no, then I say, then I can get it insured. But I'd like to have a little bit more leeway than 24 hours. But yeah, it's kind of, it runs the gamut. You have people who are, I call them belt and suspender kind of people, who they want to make sure that everything's taken care of. So they cross their T's, dot their I's. Usually people with like an engineering background have a lot of, they're more detail orientated. So they're crossing everything off and have a list put together. So
Great.
Yeah. Well, I know with people we work with, Josh, I think we've had people that, do the insurance early on, and other people that, then they come to us that maybe the day before the closing and say, hey, I need insurance.
Mhm.
mhm.
But I think it's always good advice, to brokers and agents out there, to ask your client, early on in the process? Have you looked into insurance? Do you have an insurance agent?
Yeah.
So we don't end up in those situations the day
It's
before the
also
closing. Yeah.
it's also a good way for them to get the best deal to save some money. Because if push comes to shove and I have to get a policy tomorrow, um, I know the companies that I can go to and say, I need this tomorrow. A lot of the companies, they're trying to get you to stay away from, not stay away from, but they're trying to keep the underwriters, focused. Before, you used to be able to call into an underwriter, explain your situation, and now they've kind of circumvented the process. So there's fewer companies that I can go in and ask for a favor, or just say, hey, can you move this to the top of the list because they need it tomorrow.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the more time, like I said, the more time, the better off you're going to be with the coverage and the cost.
Are the policies different if you have, let's say, a really larger building or a more expensive property versus a smaller one, or generally kind of the, you know, building blocks are the same when you think about commercial insurance?
It's mostly the same. It's usually if it's the owner of a multi-story building, and it's not their first, it's typically, part of their holdings. They're going to have an appetite for a higher deductible, so they can weather the first, however dollar amount that they want to put, on themselves. Whereas if you have somebody who's going in and buying their first mixed use building, they're going to want to keep it, the deductibles low. And depending on how, there's different factors that go into the cost, whether it's, class A office space sprinkled and, you know, central fire alarms, central burglar alarms. There's different bells and whistles that they can have in the buildings that are going to help them with the policy. So,
And is the pricing different generally if it's a user in a space versus like an investor buying a commercial property and looking for insurance?
so if it's owner occupied, some companies like that because if the owner has eyes on the building, all day long, it's just viewed. There's no, owner occupied discount, but it's something that the underwriters take into consideration that, hey, this is going to be cared for. And, God forbid something starts to break down, the owner's right there to take care of it.
Nice.
Yeah. And I know with you know, everyone's home insurance, car insurance, all that stuff has been going up exponentially. Do you see the same thing with commercial insurance going up at increasing rates like that too right now?
Yeah, on the personal side, it's the home and auto. Since the pandemic, there's been kind of the supply chain slowed down. So you get in a car accident, the parts coming from wherever may take a little bit longer. So then the rental goes up. Um, the same thing with if you have to rebuild a kitchen, the lumber price has gone up. So we've seen the prices go up. In turn, we've seen companies now feel as though they want to limit their exposure, so they're doing a lot more flying drones over roofs, and saying, "Hey, you have to cut these back, or we're going to get off the policy." So that translates into the commercial side with the same things. The materials that are needed, the price is going up. The insurance companies want to limit their risk, so uh, they will say, take care of this, this, and this. They'll do inspections and say, there's no fire extinguishers on this floor. You want to make sure that that's taken care of. So we get like little little reviews, which some people might look at it as being an annoyance to them. But God forbid there's a fire in a trash barrel. If there's a fire extinguisher within 10 feet, um, you you limit the loss basically. So that's what it's again, like I said, a necessary evil to have them go through and do those inspections.
Yeah. I'm curious, Rich, what do you enjoy most about the type of work that you do?
Um, Kind of a bizarre answer, but it's when there is a loss, kind of telling those people that everything's, going to be okay. Kind of, that's you're going through uh, a tough day, and we're able to say, we'll be here and we're going to make you whole again. It's it's not something that I do every day, nor could I still be in business if I was doing a claim a day. But when those do happen, it's kind of satisfying to say that we've got your back. So
Yeah, that's great. Now, do you have any, all the years that you've been doing this, 24, 25 years, any stories you wanted to share with us? Any interesting companies maybe you've worked with, or, certain
um,
policies that, were harder to get than others because of, they had a basement full of 12 tigers, or, something out of the norm that you've seen.
like when I try to insure the fireworks factories,
There
that's
you
like
go.
those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a couple like interesting claims. We've had an apartment building in Chelsea where they had, unbeknownst to the owners, they had an illegal apartment on the fifth floor with what I like to call the octopus electrical extension cord. So you have like a one strip with like two or three extension cords plugged into it over to a space heater. Somebody left a blanket on top of the space heater in December and started a fire on the fifth floor. And it wasn't the fire that did the most damage. It was when the fire department came to put it out. And in December, they dumped 8,000 gallons of water in this brick building. So it put the fire out, but it created a skating rink in the basement because it was a brick building, so there was no place for the water to go except down, and it just pooled down there. So the we were able to get that um, once the once it thawed, they were able to get the water out and able to rebuild the fifth floor and get people back in. So that's um, that's one of those things you think it's going to be the fire that puts them out of business, but it's the prevention, the water that did the most damage.
Yeah, I never really think about that when you see, fires being put out, where all that
Yeah,
water's going, especially if
right.
it's on the top, that yeah, it's gonna go down
Yeah.
and affect, the rest of the building or units or all that stuff too.
Hmm.
And then yeah, when days like this where it's, 15 degrees outside, it's gonna freeze
Yeah.
pretty quick.
It was actually probably about 20 years ago, right around this date. So
Mhm.
one that sticks with me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know we got about 7, 8 minutes left. I wanted to ask you, Rich, any advice you would give, either a first time um, renter of a business, someone renting, leasing space, or someone purchasing, commercial property for the first time. If, in your experience, what would you tell them to look out for or to do?
I would basically, if you're looking at the buildings, get the insurance agent, involved right away. Um, but they can do kind of the deeper dive for that. But to walk through, make sure the systems have all been upgraded. In the Northeast, we're famous for building great buildings, and sturdy, and but some of them still have the knob and tube wiring in them. So you want to make sure that the electrical systems are up to date. You want to make sure that everything's up to code. And then if it's if how old the roof is a factor. If it does have central fire and central alarm, that's something that if it doesn't have, you could look in. You'll save some money, but it's just a peace of mind. If it's strictly an office building, no, it's usually occupied from 8 to 5 or 6 at night. But the mixed use, a lot of our underwriters kind of like that because it's somebody's there all the time. So God forbid there was a fire that started, you're going to have eyes on it sooner rather than later, which prevents a total loss. So that's what you just want to make sure the area is good, plenty of parking, the sidewalks and everything are in good shape, and not, you want to prevent the trip and falls. So it's little things. You've heard me say it before. I hate sounding like, Chicken Little, the sky is falling, but I usually go with my customers and just say, you got to be wary of this and keep an eye out on this. And, if it looks good from the street, just, make sure it looks good on the inside as well.
Sounds
Nice.
good. Josh, any other questions for Rich before we finish up here?
I don't know if there's anything else, that you'd like to share that you think is important, or, about whether it's your business or just in general for people who are, might be listening that are interested in commercial real estate, and then also just maybe the business itself, the insurance business.
Yeah. No, I would recommend, somebody who's been in the commercial business for a few years. I'm going over 25 years now. I started selling when I was 12. But um, no, what I would suggest is, like I said, is just have somebody who has gone through it before, has seen a few losses, and that can explain, why certain things should be done certain ways. And the experience will, tell them, you need to make sure that you have tenant relocation, you have, lost rents, because it's not the fire that's going to, make it difficult for you to keep that property. It's the after the fire, the 6 months that you're waiting to reopen and let those tenants back in, they're not paying rent. So you want to make sure that those things are taken care of by the insurance policy that you put in place.
Great, good.
Yeah, well, thanks, Rich. We really appreciate you taking the time to come on here, talk to us about this. Hopefully, it was helpful to some of our listeners or our viewers, however you're consuming this podcast. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, how can they contact you for more information?
It's SB Goddard and Sons. We're in Woburn, right in Woburn Center. And they can reach the office phone is 781-933-0076. My cell is 617-216-7713, and it's Rich Jr. at goddardinsurance.com. And that's GODDARD insurance all spelled out.com.
Great. And I'll make sure to put that on the video here, so if you're watching or in the comments of the podcast. So thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast. If you have any questions for us, you can reach us at our podcast email at podcast@jmj-cre.com. Is that correct, Josh?
Yes.
That is correct. All right. Just wanted to verify that. Or leave us a comment, something you want us to talk about. If there's, some certain profession or someone you'd like us to talk to on this podcast, we'd be happy to hear your suggestion. So thank you, everyone. And until next time, we'll see you then.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Josh.
Josh. Have a great day.
You too.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the JMJ Commercial Realty podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of JMJ Commercial Realty or its affiliates. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial, legal, or real estate advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified professionals regarding their specific real estate or business needs. JMJ Commercial Realty makes no representations or warranties as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information discussed. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast is done solely at your own risk. By listening, you agree that JMJ Commercial Realty and its representatives shall not be held liable for any losses or damages resulting from the use of information shared.